Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM. We're back on the block. And of course, we are really cruising at this time as traffic is still looking pretty good. Somebody says this morning that when we are sure that we are on the right road, there is no need to plan our journeys too far ahead. No need to burden ourselves with doubts and fears as to the obstacles that may bar our progress. We cannot take more than one step at a time. Words of Origin Sweet Martin will just serve as an inspirational tonic for you as you drive along this morning, learning to know that others share the roads with you. You're welcome to Maritime Today, your twice weekly adventure through the maritime world. This program comes on stream Wednesdays by 9:15 and Saturdays by 10:15. It is aimed at stimulating very rich discourse from our resource persons, from our regulators and policy makers in a bid to advancing the cause of development within the sector. It's nice to have you join us. My name is Victor Oteri. For some time now, there's been so much talk about the implementation of the Cabotage Vessel Financing Fund, which was set up in 2004. 20 years down the line, it appears nothing has really been achieved. And so today on the program, we'll be reflecting on Nigeria and the unending quest for the Cabotage Vessel Financing Fund. What are some of the obstacles that is really affecting the disbursement of this fund? And what are the prospects of indigenous shippers benefiting from the CVFF fund? These and many more we'll be reflecting on if you can keep us company from now through 11 o'clock. We'll also be serving you the latest gist in the maritime world. But first off, let's branch off to our partners. Let's have a word from them. And when we return, it'll be time to set sail. Time today is a program we set for the conversation, but quickly taking you through the roads. We did tell you about that impediment around Lagos Abeokuta Expressway, precisely by Ikeja Overpass Bridge. But the good news, all recovery and toll completed at that particular flyover, and the road is fully open now. So normalcy restored. That's talking about from there to Ikeja Long and National. So there's no need for anyone going through the BRT lane. All right, so that corridor has been opened, so it's a much better drive right now if you're driving through that end. All right, another one that I can't supply you right now, a broken down 20-foot container laden truck. It's having a propeller problem. That's at Yanowuru. It was the Third Milan Bridge. I understand it's really affecting the flow of traffic right now. tow van contacted. Let's see how that can be taken care of. All right, so take note of that. If you're heading inwards the Third Milan Bridge at Yanowu Road, there's a broken down 20-feet container leading truck. So take note of that as you drive along. All other areas are still looking cool and calm. I will be giving you more helpings. But right now on Maritime Today, let's serve you the latest happenings in the maritime world. And Mike James is here to take us through that in less than 5 minutes.
All right, here is my Command of Nigeria Customs Service (NCS) has intercepted 7 containers of contraband, including cutlass, expired drugs, and some frozen chicken, among others. The Customs Area Controller, Papa Command Controller Babatunde Olumu, who disclosed this in a statement. Olumu said the importation was against Schedule 3 of the revised imports prohibition list of the Common External Tariff (CET) and violates Section 233 of the Nigeria Customs Service Act 2023. He said on Thursday, 17th July 2024, the command seized 2 by 40-feet containers carrying 12,000 pieces of cutlass and mana, carrying 368 jumbo bales of used second-hand clothing, and 1 by drugs came from India and a frozen chicken from Turkey. He said the seizures were made following a combination of intelligent and diligent enforcement. And moving on to other events, the Nigerian Navy ship NNSB Croft has apprehended 8 individuals suspected of attempted stowaway on a vessel named MV Northern Light while it was underway along Lagos Channel. The Navy has handed over the suspect and speedboat to the Nigerian Immigration Service for the sea robbery attempt. Nigerian Navy's Director of Information, Commodore Iwio Adams Aliyu, said for further care while investigation is ongoing. And finally, in the news, in a significant move to transform the shipping and integrate artificial intelligence AI across its global operations, this collaboration aims to enhance efficiency. The partnership will focus on optimizing vessel routes, container handling, and inventory management, minimizing data-driven logistics, starting with smart warehouse management using Google technology. Through this partnership, CMA-CGM aims to revolutionize the shipping industry, enhancing customer service. And that was the Maritime News. Thank you for listening. Victor Oteri will be here for the rest of the show.
The pot of the lid. From A to B, from A to B, from north to south, from north to south, from east to west, from east to west, from port to port, from port to port. You can ship your goods and feel good too. Oh yeah, Nigerian Shippers Council, we meet you at the point of your need.
The Nigerian Shippers Council is now better poised with responsive systems in place to help you and other shippers get seamless, stress-free transition for your clients' goods from point A to B. Today at the Nigerian Shippers Council, timeliness, orderliness, transparency, and efficiency is all we care about. Put your complaint through to our helpline 0818-888-8895. Visit us at number 4 Ayodele Shoyode Lane, Apapa, Lagos, or reach us on www.shipperscouncil.gov.ng.
Nigerian Shippers Council, we meet you at the point of your need.
Nigerian Shippers Council, we meet you at the port of your needs.
Lagos Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM. Maritime Today is a program. Of course, we've done some house cleaning duties in terms of the updates. But of course, if you have any issues with your movement on the roads, you can always keep us posted. Send a message to us on 08099120777. On Maritime Today, we're looking at Nigeria and the unending quest for cabotage vessel financing fund. My guest on the program is no stranger to the microphone. He's one who stands tall when we talk about shipping services, an indigenous ship owner of several years standing, former Minister of the Interior, and of course, he's also chairman of Genesis Worldwide Services Limited. Joining me on the phone line this morning, Captain Emmanuel Iheanacho. He's our guest. It's nice to have you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Terry.
And how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you very much. And thank you for the good job that you continue to do in mounting these campaigns. And I'm hoping that sometime in the near future, our policymakers would react to your work and make available this fund so that we can buy ships and participate in the movement of our trade goods.
Great. So before we even talk about the CVFF, I know that we spoke with you last time. That was sometime around April. And at that time, you gave a kind of sober assessment of the industry. It's 3 months gone by. Has things really changed in the maritime sector?
Well, I cannot see how things can change in that short space of time. 3 months is really it's a minuscule time for us to expect any changes to happen. So things are really the way they have been.
All right, and it appears it's the same thing when we talk about the Cabotage Vessel Financing Fund. I know sometime in 2003, the act setting it up was actually established. 21 years down the line, we're still where we are. But for those who do not really know what the CVFF is all about, Captain Iheanacho, just take us through. What does it really mean?
Well, the CVFF is a Cabotage Vessel Financing Fund. It's a special fund which is set up by government to accrue resources into an account from which interested Nigerians who want to invest in shipping in the cabotage or coastwise sector can borrow funds from. You know that shipping is a highly capital-intensive business. And so if we rely upon the possibility that we could borrow money commercially from the commercial banks or from any of the multilateral institutions, it will never happen.
Right.
So it is one of the accepted methods of financing shipping development in developing countries that specific processes, specific programs were set up, and the CVFF is one of such provisions by the Nigerian government.
Right, so it's not novel to Nigeria alone, it's a global practice?
Yes, it's not novel to Nigeria alone, it's a global practice, but it may not be called a CVFF elsewhere, but the idea is generally the same. It's money that is made available at rates that people can afford, and it's specifically geared towards people investing in the acquisition of ships and in the operation of those ships in their economy.
Right, so why is it taking so long for an approval or perhaps some kind of disbursement to be made? This is 21 years down the line.
Well, that is the same question that I would like to put. If I was a minister of the transport, for instance, I would have actually found out the modalities that people have to go through to be able to qualify to draw from the fund. But keeping the fund there and procrastinating, talking about it endlessly is not the way forward. The country must move forward. The country cannot stagnate. For 21 years, an idea was mooted, it was articulated, it was put down in written form, and for 21 years, we're still talking about it, asking ourselves, should we go forward, should we not go forward? That is not the way for a country to develop. We really ought to do a little bit better than what we've done so far.
All right, Captain Iheanacho, was it a mistake for the government to have even delved in this area in the first place?
No, it wasn't a mistake at all, because shipping is really, really important to the development of the Nigerian economy. Shipping is essential for the evacuation of our exports, notably crude oil that we produce should be carried on ships and then taken to foreign refineries. And after the crude oil is actually refined, it will be brought back on board ships. So it's a good idea for us to participate in adding value to that trade. rather than in trading in the primary products itself. That has been a major critique against the developing countries and their policies. You don't produce a cocoa, for instance, and sit down there and wait for somebody to come and carry it. If there is a possibility that you could actually bag it, it will create jobs for the people, put it in containers, and then ship it in vessels. And if those vessels perchance happen to be Nigerian owned, if they happen to be Nigerian manned, you continue to add value to it, and as you're doing that, you are creating jobs for Nigerian elements, you are creating profits that can be reinvested. So it isn't a mistake at all. It's the right thing to do, but it needs to be led right.
Right.
And I need to say it so that people understand it. If we continue to talk about politics and politicizing everything that we do, then the country is not going to go far. We will be one big political country, but then in terms of advancements, technologically, morally, and every which way you want to look at, we will just be stagnant. And that's not what we want.
All right, so let's look at the processes or how it was really actually set up for it to work. Where was the funds supposed to be derived from, and who warehouses it?
Well, I mean, it's a tax that is placed on shippers. You know, they contribute a certain proportion of the money that is supposed to accrue to them in the international trade business.
Right.
I think the amount there was about 3%, 2% went towards the cabotage fund, and I think a percentage went to the administration, which is NIMASA.
All right.
But the point I would like to make here is you keep hearing about CVFF, and more CVFF. But I'd like to point out to you that before CVFF, there was a fund that was set up by government called the SASBF, the Ship Acquisition and Shipbuilding Fund.
Okay.
And that was actually to facilitate the ability of Nigerians to access funds to invest in shipping generally, not to specifically concentrate on the cabotage limits.
And did that one
So
work?
no, it worked to a certain extent, because one set of people got some of the money. The performance was mixed. Some people paid and some people didn't pay back. But what we really needed to do was to take away the lessons that was learnt from the administration of the SASBF and improve upon it and then continue it. Well, what I'd like to say to you now is that the SASBF is not repealed. It's still there. And the monies that are required to be accrued in trade is accruing into that fund. But then, of course, nobody is talking about it because everybody is pivoted. And we're now talking about the CVFF. All right, so we talk about SASBF on the one hand. We talk about the CVFF on the other hand. We really need to talk about other similar funds that are maintained in government ministries. In the Ministry of Transport, for instance,
Right.
they have a special fund for shipping development, but nobody says anything about it or talks about it. In the Ministry of Finance, they have a similar fund set aside for the development of indigenous shipping. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's doing anything about it.
Right.
In the NCDMB, that is the Nigerian Content Board, they have a fund of 100 million United States dollars, which is set aside and warehoused with a BOI. No, not a lot of people know about this thing. So I think that there is a lot of educating that needs to be made so that people can understand that there are diversified sources from which people can access funds to invest in Nigerian shipping.
All right, so
But the bottom line is we need to be involved in Nigerian shipping and not to be talking about it ad infinitum.
which is very, very correct. But could it be that all those that have been, administering the country from one, regime or one administration to the other, could it be that they are not very much aware of these funds which you've mentioned, and that is why nothing is done about ship development?
Yeah, it's entirely possible, but it's not anybody's particular business to go and be educating the officials in the ministries and telling them what their jobs are, where they should be looking. I mean, it would be an element of the consideration before they are appointed that people know that these guys are up to scratch and can actually look around and find out where resources are absolutely idle and bring those idle resources online and apply them in the particular sector of the economy where they would be very effective in creating additional value and in creating jobs and in ensuring technology transfer to Nigerians.
Right.
That is what ought to be done. So if you get people who can sit down on their oars and sit down on their hands and do nothing and they tool around the place in fancy cars and all of those things. That is not what you want. You want people who are absolutely up to the job and can really develop the economy in ways that can be easily measured.
So let's look at ship owners like you, indigenous ship owners, because the understanding is that these funds are meant to create a kind of capacity for indigenous shippers like you. So how has it been? I mean, what does it look like for indigenous shippers in Nigeria?
Yeah, but you listen to them all the time, don't you? Talking on radio, you read all the time them talking in social media. They're talking about it. We are going to get the money. We are going to get the money. Talking about it and actually being able to access the money are two different things. I think that what really ought to happen would be for a meaningful dialogue to be initiated between those who have an interest in accessing this fund and the people who have responsibility for holding on to it, to say, okay, the money is there. What are the conditions that we have to achieve?
Right, I understand about the CVFF for I mean, words of interruption. Let's even digress a bit from the fund and talk about your experience as indigenous shippers. So how do you acquire ships?
Well, that's the point now. If you don't have, it is a characteristic of international shipping that shippings are highly capital intensive. So if I wanted to, I operated in the tanker sector, where I ran a number of tankers along the coast. In those days, ships were not really very expensive, because if I spent $2 million or $3 million in those days, I could buy myself a nearly fully depreciated MR vessel, which would be a vessel that would be about 43,000 tons.
Right.
And it would be about nearly 20 years old at the time. So that has been my experience. I did a benefit from the SASBF in that I think I borrowed $2.5 million.
Okay.
And I bought quite an old ship. But what I did, which was significant, was that I didn't buy it to trade along the coast. I traded it internationally. I traded it to India. I traded it to Brazil. I went to Spain. I went everywhere. So the full gamut of experiences that an indigenous operator ought to acquire, we were exposed to it and we acquired it. But then, of course, after a few years, because of the age of the vessel, we had to scrap it. We have scrapped it, we paid our money and we scrapped the ship. And we expected then that we would move on to another stage of the implementation, which would identify those who have done well in the primary phase, and then put more help for them to buy either brand new ships or to build ships which were specified to their requirements. So it didn't happen because a lot of talk continued to be traded back and forth, and it just didn't happen.
Which is quite unfortunate. So this might this is the experience for other indigenous shippers like you. They have to spend a whole lot to purchase those ships by themselves, and it takes so much. But let's dwell a bit on, you know, the cost of even getting a vessel. As it stands today, if any indigenous shipper wants to get a brand new vessel for shipment or for shipping, how much does it cost?
Well, it depends on the size of the ship and the specification of the vessel. So let me give you an example of I mentioned an MR vessel, which is a tanker vessel, which is about 43,000 tons, would be about 183 meters long, would be about 32 meters wide, would be about 12.5, 13 meters deep.
Right.
So it is quite a big ship. So if I wanted years ago, when I say years ago, say about 10 years ago, if I wanted to buy a ship like that, and if it was 15 years old, I would probably spend about $3 million, $4 million. The last time that I priced one that I wanted to buy, a Nigerian guy had a similar ship and wanted to sell it. And he really put it in good nick because he had actually taken it to dry dock. And he offered it to me for $6 million. Wow. And unfortunately, the bank that I was working with just let me down at the last minute because they didn't seem to know what we were talking about, because we were talking all the time, telling him what we were doing. And when it got to the day that the money was going to be paid, I said, well, it's time to pay the money. And he said, oh, what are you talking about? I said, well, I've been talking to you for months on end, and you don't seem to understand what we've been talking about, which is one of the big problems that we have. The banks don't know anything about shipping.
Right.
So we lost it. But if you wanted to buy a ship like that today, you will pay $26 million for a ship that is about 15 years old. So it isn't an easy business. It's a very expensive business. And if government doesn't put its shoulders behind Nigerian shippers,
Right.
we are just going to be in the margins,
All right.
cheering and waving other people and not being able to participate in the play ourselves.
All right, then Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM. If you're wondering who's speaking with me so eloquently this morning, is the former Minister for the Interior and Chairman Genesis Worldwide Shipping Services, Captain Emmanuel Iheanacho. We're going to take another break right now, but when we return, we'll reflect a bit. We've seen men come, men go in terms of ministerial positions and those who are saddled with the responsibility of disbursement of this fund. It appears nothing really has happened. So what is really going on? We'll try and find out. And now that we have a new helmsman in Nimasa, is it possible for us to finally come to the point where CVFF will be disbursed? These are many more to be reflecting on, but a brief break, we'll be back.
Yes, so the Nigerian Shippers Council, they feel in a parole now for every level. And as soon as goods, they move from Port A, go enter Port B with a measure within on a need. For the Nigerian Shippers Council, we don't shop proper to fit hear you wella, work with you wella, and help you fit serve your customers them better, no matter where them day. As we country port economic regulator, the Nigerian Shippers Council get every now to fit make government consider the problem when shippers them they face. Visit we office for number 4 or to buy your daily show your daily. Papa, email us for nsc@shipperscouncil.gov.ng. We website now www.shipperscouncil.gov.ng. Allow us on top 0818-888-8895 or 0703-584-6468. Nigerian Shippers Council with a meeting now for the port of Unanid.
Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM. Maritime Today is the program. Nigeria and the unending quest for CVFF is our focus. And Captain Emmanuel Iheanacho is taking us to the classroom this beautiful Saturday morning. Bariga Corridor movement from Olokwe Meji and Bagada Bridge that ends proceeding towards Yanowuru. And Elijah is moving at an appreciable pace down to Adekunle, heading towards Adeniji on the 3rd mainland bridge. All those areas still looking good. We'll be giving you more helpings. But by the way, if you want to join the conversation, feel free to do so. 08099120777 and 09153 877127. Captain Emmanuel Iheanacho, let's rewind a bit. I know that sometime in January 2020, the then Minister of Transportation, Honorable Rotimi Amechi, announced at a forum, precisely at the Shippers Appreciation Night, that President Buhari has given approval for the disbursement of the CVFF, and that he'll be liaising with Nimasa and the Nigerian Shippers Council to look into the modalities of a disbursement. That never happened. In 2022, proceeding towards 2023, the then minister as well, that's Honorable Muazu, he also announced that the CVFF was ready to be disbursed. Up to today, nothing has happened. What's going on? Is it a case of same script, different cast? Hello, Captain Emmanuel.
Yeah, what's the question then?
Okay, so I was saying that in 2020, the then Minister Rotimi Amechi announced that it was going to be disbursed. He was going to liaise with the relevant agencies. That did happen at the twilight of the administration, when the minister, another minister that took over from him, Honorable Muazu, also came in. He announced that the fund was going to be disbursed. So what's going on? I'm asking, is it a case of same script, different cast?
All right, well, it's very difficult to get a third party to answer that question. I think you have identified the gentleman who announced that the fund was ready to be operationalized. There was a Governor Amechi in 2020, and there was Mr. Muazu in 2022. Well, they are the ones who made the announcements, and they are the ones who actually were inside the government at the time, and they can better tell you why they made the announcement and then the thing didn't come to anything. I can't tell you that at all. I don't know.
Was it the case of trying to make those in industry happy, or perhaps indigenous shippers happy, without having the necessary wherewithal to carry it out?
No, but that would not be very nice. I mean, someone doesn't answer to the title Honorable Minister for nothing. If you are an Honorable Minister, one would expect that your words, your pronouncement really would be very honorable indeed. So if you said something was going to happen, you would make sure that it happens. And if it didn't happen, then you would know that you owed it to the people to explain to them why your predictions and your pronouncements turned out to be nothing but dust.
All right, I'm having some reactions that are coming in for you. This one says, hi, Lagos Traffic Radio. Why has the disbursement of the CVFF been delayed for so many years? Sam Okonkwo is sending that one in. I think you've given some reasons, but I maybe just want to respond to him.
Yeah, well, it hasn't been disbursed because we can't on our own, being interested parties who are interested in borrowing from the fund, go there and then press a button and then the money will start spewing out of the from wherever it is kept. It is the responsibility of the supervising ministry and the minister to absolutely draw up a program of when and how this money will be disbursed. And to the extent that they haven't done it, then it's them who really ought to answer to the Nigerian population to say this is the reason why this promise that we made has failed to materialize.
All right, this one says, good morning, Victor. I am Daniel from Apapa. Please, what are the criteria for Nigerian ship owners to access the CVFF? All right, Captain Emmanuel Henacho.
Yeah, I'm just quite amused at the questions that they ask. If that gentleman, Mr. Daniel, is at this stage asking what criteria one has to attain to be able to draw, is he serious about drawing money from that? I mean, if you want to borrow money from a bank, you go to the bank and you tell them, I want to borrow money. You articulate a vision, a feasibility proposal, a business plan, and then you submit this to them. And then if they were interested, if they had the resources to lend to you, they will tell you the specific terms and conditions that you have to meet.
Right.
But if you wait for a radio program and then you ask the guy who's running the program what conditions you have to meet, it's a long shot that you would ever find out any meaningful information.
Or maybe Daniel is wondering, maybe it's because of the criteria. That's why the disbursement hasn't taken place. I'm just answering that. But another one here says, good morning. How will the disbursement of the CVFF be managed and monitored to ensure transparency? Yusuf is sending that one in.
Well, it's exactly the same way that banks monitor people that they lend money to. First of all, they have to evaluate who you are to ensure that you are really genuine in terms of what it is you want to do with the money. They have to look at the feasibility proposal that you put before them, and they get an independent agency to verify some of the particulars that you put there. And if your assumptions really bear up, then they will get to the point where they will now say to you, okay, you want to borrow 10 naira. We want you to show good faith and contribute 3 naira of your own money. So for every 1 naira, no, for every 10 naira that you borrow from us, you are going to contribute 3 naira. So if you have all of those things, then you are serious. If you don't have it, then chances are that the bank, whether it's a private bank, whether it's a government institution, they will come to the conclusion that you're not really serious and that you're not worthy of being lent any money, because the chance of expropriation would be too high.
All right, this one says, good morning, Lagos Traffic Radio. I always feel happy listening to Captain Iheanacho on this program. Can you explain the roles of the primary lending institutions, PLIs, in the disbursement process? Barrister Okon is sending that one in.
Yeah, Barrister Okon, I think that the role of the primary lending institution is actually to carry out the due diligence requirements for the lending. You have to evaluate the customer. You have to evaluate the feasibility proposal that they put before you. You have to look at the securitization of the debt and all of those things. So at the end of the day, when you have evaluated the number of people who are before you, can then choose and give a list to the agency that appointed you to say, look, we think that these guys are serious, this guy is going to be able to perform, and then you then move on from there to how they want to lend you the money, the amount that they are going to give to you, the amount that you are going to contribute, and all of those things.
All right, let's begin to, take it home this morning as we hit the finish line. We have a new sheriff in town. Of course, we have a new ministry, at least for this administration, and a new director general for NIMASA. Are we really, really hopeful? I mean, is there the conviction that Dr. Dayo Mubriola and, of course, the Honorable Minister, His Excellency Adegboyega, will be able to implement the CVFF fund during this administration?
Well, I have no doubts, really, that Dayo is a very good man and he's a very well qualified. I remember when he was appointed to the position, in the usual manner, as happens in the industry, people started putting around, so, who's this new guy again that they brought? Oh, he doesn't, he's a new man. And unfortunately, when they brought that story to me, I said to them, I am in a position to vouch for this man because I have known him for 40 years. I met him in the portals of the University of Wales when we were both in the same faculty. That was years ago. He was doing his research at that time. I think he was only about 26, very young, very bright. And I was just finishing my MSc in international shipping.
Right.
And so we met and we kept on talking. And from that, I know him to be a solid person. I know him to be well-grounded. And if anybody can make it happen, I think that Dayo, working closely with the support of the Honorable Minister, will make it happen.
All right, then. We'll leave it at that for now. It's always a thing of joy having you on the program. Captain Emmanuel Henacho, thank you so much for connecting with us.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Mr. Oteri. Thank you, and have a good day.
And you too. All right, then. So that's how far we'll go. Of course, we've looked at Nigeria and the unending quest for the Cabotage Vessel Financing Fund. Mike James has produced the program this morning. Utebe Akpan and Buluwatife Adeyefi also in the building. John Afe is of the social media unit. Same for Okpayemi Shodunke. Let me appreciate Rebecca Adamu, who's Assistant Director, Public Relations for the Nigerian Shippers Council, and of course the Executive Secretary himself, Barrister Pius Akuta. Connect with the Shippers Council on all their platforms at NG Shippers. My name is Victor Oteri. Have a great Saturday. Bye.